Domestic abuse, or as it's otherwise known, domestic violence, is still a rampant issue, and it only seems to be getting somewhat worse or more reported. So, what the hell is it all about? Why is it such a prevalent issue still? And what can be done about it? Hey guys, Rob Murphy from Holistic Healing Choices here. Now I've decided to make this video because there is just so much going on, maybe just in my local sort of area about it, but it is still such a prevalent issue. With something that, with some self-restraint and control on the outside, should be a non-issue in this day and age. The statistics go, at least for Australia or at least for New South Wales, that at least 1 in 4 females have experienced some form of domestic abuse, domestic violence, and 1 in 8 males, which is a huge number. Like a quarter of all women have had some form of this abuse, whether it be a partner, whether it be a family member, with something that, if we took steps to control our anger, something that just should not exist. Now, there's a lot to sort of think about here as well. It's averaged that every 9 days, 1 woman is killed from domestic violence. It's not like every day, but it is still a huge number of an avoidable statistic. Now, I've had some stuff like in our local area that's been pretty close. Probably the more recent one, which isn't close to us, but one that made no sense whatsoever, happened just very recently. A guy went to his ex-wife's house, I would say with the intent to kill her, found 2 other people there, a woman and her daughter, house sitting, and proceeded to tie them up. I would say put them through a hell of an ordeal, trying to get to his ex-wife, and then he ended up shooting both the woman and her daughter, and then himself, because he's a fucking coward. It's just so senseless. These are 2 people who had nothing to do with the original relationship that have suffered because of it. Other instances close as well, and it's a failure of justice in this case. These 2 broke up. He started stalking her, sending harassing calls, blah blah blah. I think it may have even got physical. Judge, yep, guilty, yep, here's bail, out, paid the bail, went and finished the job. Such a failure of justice. When someone shows these violent tendencies, it should be a clear-cut sort of thing that, no, without, proper psychiatric help or interventions or just keeping them locked up because they're a fucking animal. But the legal system is the legal system, and it is broken in many, many ways. Not just in this case, so many other ways. So where does it come from? Where is this deep-seated rage or this need to impose yourself on to someone else? And, it's not just women, it is men as well. But we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. So it is not just a one-sided thing. But the thing is, there's many different types as well. Luckily enough, while I was over in Kokoda, I was talking with a police officer who works with this. He says 90% of them are your one-offs. They have a bit of an argument, things get heated, stuff happens, they do feel sorry, they feel remorseful, whatever else as well. And I could just say, from my own experiences, yep, I was angry when I was younger. In my early 20s, I was very, very angry, but I always had that self-control. I'd never take it out on someone, I'd take it out on something, like an inanimate object, a lawnmower, a door, other things, and let it go. So I can know from my personal experience, I wouldn't say I've never hit a woman. My current wife, she's the only woman that I've kicked in the face, or the only partner I've had that I've kicked in the face, and she stayed. And when she told people, I was the only one I've kicked in the face that stayed. No, context matters here because we were sparring in a nice controlled environment. It wasn't even a hard shot or anything like that. So we both do martial arts. It was consensual that, we're going to spar. And I've got longer limbs than her and a reach, and she's shorter, so it was easy to pop a kick up. But that is completely different. That's not taking any of our issues from our relationship and putting it into there. Martial arts is a good outlet for some of the rage as well, which I'll talk about later. We're going through a period now where it's a very big issue on a world stage with one of the world's biggest artists, producers, has been, shown from years back violently beating someone. There's no allegedly about it. It's right there on tape. You can see it's quite clearly him trying to stop someone escaping him from the looks of it, because he's, holding onto his towel as she's trying to get out of the situation and controlling her, putting her into a state of fear, shock. You will not leave me. Now, this is the controlling type where they use that violence, that hold, that threat of, you leave me, it's going to get so much worse than this. And that relates to some of the other ones that I've talked about previously as well, in that control. They feel that they need that control over that person. That to me is the ultimate form of weakness. If you're not free to let someone do what they want to do, or leave, or come back, or whatever the case is, you feel you need that person in there. You need to control that person. That to me is the ultimate form of weakness. Why aren't you strong enough in yourself to be able to control the situation, to control your thoughts, to control your actions as well? Why do you need to control someone else? Or why do you even need someone else? Now too, for fear of that person going out and, spilling their guts and everything else. The person I'm talking about is, of course, Sean Puffy Combs, who has allegedly a long history of this. I'm sure in enough time, a lot more will come out about what's happened in the past with him. And it seems like he likes to control everyone. It's not just this isolated incident, it's been everything. Which to me shows that insane weakness. Then you've got other, big celebrities like Harvey Weinstein, of course, doing all sorts of stuff with people. And then, of course, Chris Brown as well. Now, the thing is with these celebrity ones, Chris Brown was a decade ago. Get over it. It's done. You've still got so many supporters who are quick to forget it, to move on, to not separate the artist from their own acts. But Chris Brown's such a dreamy looking guy, blah, blah, blah. And allow that to sort of get swept under the rug, so to speak. Not allowing the behaviour, he's done that, but he's trying to change. And that's absolute bullshit. Unless they actually prove that they're trying to change, unless it's a continual cycle of trying to prove that as well. That you're not going to fly off the handle, that you're not going to beat, that you're not trying to try and control that person. Males experience that rage a lot more, but it is not just to males. I've seen lots of females exhibit similar signs, but in a less physical sort of way. Now too, being in the military, we actually have we had a domestic violence video. Now, in this one, we had a warrant officer, a male warrant officer, who would go home and his wife would be throwing things at him like fry pans, plates, whatever. That is still domestic abuse, domestic violence. It probably gets reported a lot less for males. So it's not just only a female thing, but it's only more so the females that end up not here anymore from the results of it. As we talk about this, it is both sides. So where does this rage come from? And what can we actually do about this? For instance, if it is, an isolated incident where you fly off the handle, it's still there. There's something that triggered you to go that far. I urge you to seek help, whether that be finding out what the hell it was that triggered you, whether it just be get yourself to a psychologist, get yourself to a counsellor, get yourself to someone who can sort of pinpoint, get you to work through that issue, get you to release some of that rage and move on. Because I know for myself as a kid, every time I showed a little bit of anger, I was told to stop it, let it go, just stop being angry. How do you stop an emotion when you're in it without it being suppressed? So it was this cycle of suppress until it comes out. I've learnt now many different ways and healthier ways to get rid of that before it happens. Through your martial arts, through exercise, through just letting it go at the time, moving through it. So I'm not angry I'm angry at that time, in that situation, whatever's happening there, and I don't then put it onto someone else or, end up hurting someone I care about and love with that misplaced anger, that misplaced rage. Because in many ways too, I am still a very angry person. There are lots of things that trigger me, and I'm doing my best to work through it. I can actually, hand on heart, say that I haven't actually ever hit anyone out of anger. Self-defense, yeah, sure, but not out of anger. I haven't been the one to initiate anything in my adult life, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just an anomaly in this, but if something is so, and if it is your partner that infuriates the hell out of you, what is it that's stopping you from letting go of that situation and just leaving them to get on with their lives, leaving you to move on and get on with your life? Sure, sometimes there are kids involved, and some people use those kids as leverage and all sorts of other horror stories that I'm sure you've likely heard if you've got adult friends who have split and you've got kids and all that sort of thing. It can be an absolute nightmare. There are plenty of avenues available for you to release some of that and help where you can get it. Sometimes I know some people will do things out of spite, but it's your reaction to that as well. How are you reacting to that? So for the victims, what's stopping you from leaving other than the fear of it getting worse? With the fear of it getting worse though, how can you then protect yourself from that as well? What avenues can you use? It's one of those things, you've got to look at all your options available. Because when you're in that situation, I know it can be very isolating. It can feel like there are no other options. If I do anything, they'll get worse. If I speak out, if I just stay here, go through the normal, but then whatever they're getting from being or having that behaviour gets worse because it no longer works the same for them. They no longer have that sort of control, because it may just start out as yelling, then move to a physical altercation when the yelling no longer works or has the desired effect, and then the escalation of violence from there as well. Those people are the weak people who don't want to change. So it's up to you to get out of that situation and get something done about that person to stop it from happening to anybody else and to stop it from continuing to happen to you. Now, I don't want to say it's victim blaming, victim shaming or anything. And the victim is made to feel powerless. I understand that. It's a horrible, horrible situation with a lot of moving parts and things that it's not an easy way. But for the people who do exhibit that violent behaviour and want to stop, I urge you to speak out. Admit to yourself that you have problems with anger, that you have violent tendencies, that you have whatever the case may be for you, and seek help. Seek professional help. Don't just go to the pub with your mates, have a beer and talk things out and think that that's going to actually do anything. Because too, your friends might be sympathisers with you because they like you. And they may be like you as well in that case, because like attracts like and everything else as well. But so break that cycle. Get out, seek help, change your behaviour to a way to better deal with whatever's happening, whatever's triggering you. Some other self-help things. Emotional freedom technique helps, the tapping style of stuff to release any anger. Go through, release childhood memories, and it could be that this behaviour has been, like your father's done it, your grandfather did it, all the way through. It may just seem normal. That's how you get what you want, is by imposing your force onto someone, of lesser strength or lesser will than you. And too, for the victims as well, you may have grown up with that. So it's comfortable for you. It's what you know. Step out of that. Start to empower yourself through little bits and pieces first. My father was a violent alcoholic against my mother. So when I was 8 months old, she just up and left. She actually did do this and went through all the court proceedings, moved town, sold a lot of stuff to move, as well as for then my grandma's health. at the time as well. Moved to a better town, a couple of hours away, and yeah, went through all the court sort of proceedings the legal way. Thankfully though, it worked. It worked out. My dad didn't want to chase or do anything like that, so she was free from it. But I know in a lot of cases too, it just doesn't work out that way. You can't change the other person, you can only change your way of doing things. I hope this is of some help. There are plenty of help support lines out there, regardless of where you live. I'm sure like America has theirs, England has theirs, I know Australia has plenty, as well as other support groups as well. I know in our local area we've got Birds in the Bush and Blokes for Birds, which looks at the whole thing of am I next? Part of it too does annoy me that everybody seems to be roped into all men are violent. We've got the whole thing now on social media where girls are going to choose to go with the bear because the bear is a safer option than being in a relationship with a male. It's one of those things that does annoy me because being someone who's never struck out against a female in anger, never shown those violent tendencies, but you know, you can identify with the anger issues, to see that sort of thing, because I know it's not all men. I know none of my close friends have any of those violent tendencies, and I would like to think in my acquaintance circle that I know no one who is an abuser. There are people that I've gone to school with who've turned into that sort of thing as well. They're people that I would no longer want to associate with, and I know that if I ever did strike out in anger, I've always said to myself, like, I will leave. I'll remove myself from the situation because then I obviously can't be trusted. If it's one thing that sets me off, who's to say that thing isn't going to happen on a daily basis or a regular basis, or it's not, I'm not going to adapt it over to other things because I've seen that, you know, the violence works to get my way, to get the other person to stop doing what they're doing or whatever else. So adapt it to other things. I would stop, get help myself. So I'm not being a hypocrite here saying, oh, everybody else needs help. I know that, yeah, I've worked a hell of a lot on myself since my early years, and I encourage other people to do the same thing, whether it is through your traditional routes or whether it is the alternate paths as well, like I've chosen. It is a solvable issue, but it is going to take a hell of a lot of time. For ages, you know, it was seen somewhat as somewhat acceptable. It's just going to happen. And especially, you know, you'd think of the yobbos. It was a lower classer sort of problem. But, you know, you've got the elites doing this sort of thing as well. The people in very, very high positions showing this same sort of behaviour. So it's not just a lower person issue. It's an all over issue. So everything needs to be done, needs to work better. And it needs to be stopping this, you know, men versus women sort of behaviour as well, because that creates that division. It's something that we need to work on together. But enough rambling for me. If you're experiencing any sign of whether it be physical, emotional, financial sort of abuse, seek help. Please. Please. We need to stop this cycle. I want to stop hearing about it. I literally want to stop hearing about it because it's no longer a thing. But there are always going to be violent people, and there are always going to be people who, you know, repress or just get nagged on until they snap. If it's just one little isolated incident, that's better than a life of that sort of abuse. But anyway, guys, I'm Rob Murphy. Any questions, comments, or anything you think I didn't cover in this video, please leave a comment down below, because that may help someone else deal with them. Realize that they've got an issue as well and go seek that help. I think together we can do this, but you actually have to want to change. But anyway, guys, that's it for me for this one. Take it easy, and I'll see you in the next video.